chapter asks us, does the juvenile justice system discriminate? So there have been charges that the juvenile justice system discriminates based on race or ethnicity and also class and gender. When we think about discrimination, we think about it in terms of conflict and labeling theories, that we have powerful groups in society who view minority groups and poor people as a threat to economic and cultural interests. Poor people and certain group members are more likely to be seen as dangerous and threatening. So African Americans represent 13% of the population, but are overrepresented in all aspects of the system. 28% of arrests, 35% of cases referred to court, 37% of those in detention, 36% in correctional facilities, and 41% of all cases waived to court judicially. So first we can think about, when we want to study this, how we would study it. So we could focus on a state or one or more counties within a state. We can also examine one or more decision points, bail, whether to press charges, and determine if the race of the juvenile influences decisions. One thing we want to think about, though, is, does that work? Is race playing a role when we think about the variables that should be taken into account? So the most serious determinants of treatment are seriousness of offense and prior record. Overrepresentation is partly due to discrimination against African Americans. So officials may hold negative stereotypes, and they may believe these juveniles to be more likely to be dangerous, disrespectful, or have bad attitudes. The extent of discrimination varies across departments and courts. The more professionalized the department is, and the better trained they are, the less discrimination we see. It also varies by type of crime and is greater for less serious crimes and greater in enforcement of drug laws. But the issue here is that small amounts of discrimination at different points have large overall effects. So they have a cumulative effect, they add up. We also remember that discrimination can be direct and indirect. So African Americans who are treated more severely than similar whites is direct discrimination. Indirect discrimination means race is associated with other variables that influence treatment in the court system. So how do we address this? Well, the federal government funding requires states to determine whether and why minorities are overrepresented at all major points in the juvenile justice system, and to implement programs to reduce that. Almost all states do find that African Americans are overrepresented at one or more points. So what are some programs we can implement? Sensitivity training for police and court workers, developing explicit guidelines for decision making, monitoring police and court decisions for fairness, developing alternatives to secure detention and confinement, and increasing representation of minorities in police and court systems. Reductions in race and ethnic differences in detention have happened after development of some of racially and ethnically neutral risk assessments. We also see class discrimination. The community's economic status may increase the likelihood of arrest, and an individual's social class may affect how one is treated once referred to the court. In terms of gender, we know that men are more likely to be arrested and treated severely for serious crimes, but girls are more likely to be arrested and treated severely for status offenses.